Kevin, to kick this one to you, do you think that Derrick Henry can slow down this surging Bengals team of late?
So I'm confused with this one only because we don't know the capacity that Derek is going to be back. I know he was activated. I know they're saying that he's got a full clear path in terms of not really much of a pitch count. But are we going to get the Derrick Henry of old back? Are we going to get the 2,000-yard season Derrick Henry? Are we going to get the guy that's bolstering people over with his overpowering strength and size and then breakaway speed? We quite frankly do not know. That injury could end up setting Derrick Henry back. It could end up slowing him down. He could have playoff jitters. There's a million different narratives that could end up happening with Derrick Henry. The biggest thing is, even if Derrick Henry doesn't come back to be 100%, if it's 85%, that is still a consistent, powerful running back that is going to take away the clock, take away time of possession from Joe Burrow in that offense. And quite frankly, I don't know if the Bengals have necessarily been able to face someone of Derrick's caliber. So I'm just kind of looking at this and I'm saying, if Derrick Henry can just play consistent, just 4 yards per carry, 20 to 25 touches, maybe get a couple of catches in the passing game here and there, that is going to bode tremendously for Tennessee because we all know that Ryan Tannehill has his best performances when the play action pass is working. And what better way to test that when you have arguably one of the most dominant running backs in the NFL coming back in a postseason game? Now, obviously, Tennessee has some postseason history, a little bit of experience from last year's big run. So they're no stranger to this particular instance. They're no stranger to this pressure. On the opposing side, Cincinnati Bengals are young. They're very inexperienced in the playoffs. Joe Burrow and those boys are definitely probably the hottest team in football right now. I believe I looked at a statistic that said Joe Burrow had over 1,000 yards passing, 13 total touchdowns, and I believe 0 interceptions in his last 5 games, which of course include this past postseason game. That's massive. Usually the hottest team in the league typically has the best performance in the playoffs, and in this case, it just so happens to be the most inexperienced team in the playoffs that's remaining. So I'm looking at the Bengals and I'm saying they got to limit turnovers. Joe Burrow has to have a flawless game. Joe has to be able to distribute the ball evenly. It can't just be Jamar. That three-headed monster of Higgins, Boyd, and of course Jamar has to be effective and consistent. They're also going to have to utilize Joe Mixon to keep away from Derrick Henry himself, because once the Titans get rolling, once Derrick gets comfortable, once he gets in a rhythm, it is hard to slow that offense down. Those drives are going to start to become from 6 to 8 minute drives. You could end up being 9 to 12 minutes. I mean, we've seen the Titans drain the clock tremendously when Derrick Henry is in the game and healthy. So we will end up seeing what happens. Be about 36 degrees out there in Tennessee. Obviously, home field advantage belongs to the Titans. So we'll see how Joe can handle the adversity of being in an opponent's house for his first away postseason game. But if I had to put a pin on it, if I had to actually go out there and make a guess or a prediction, I'm saying the Bengals are going to win this game. I got the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. I know that's a bold statement. I know that's something crazy. I know that we're a couple of games away from that. But there's just something about Joe Burrow I can't shake. There's something about the Bengals that I really like. And if I'm completely wrong, I'm completely wrong. It doesn't really matter. Kyle and I have been wrong on so many takes this year. But I just really have faith in the Bengals to advance to the AFC Championship because I think that three-headed receiving core of a monster and Joe Mixon combined is going to be a tall task for the Titans to stop.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the totally opposite route that you have in this matchup. So when I look at the Titans as a whole, this matchup really screams to me, similar to what you said, how effective is Derrick Henry going to be? And I think he's going to loom large as far as his overall impact. I think that Derrick has been really waiting for this moment. I think it killed him not to be out there with his teammates the last 2 months while he was recovering from this injury that he had about halfway through the season. Now that he's back in the lineup for Tennessee, I think it's going to bode tremendously well for their overall psyche going into this game because, let's face it, Tennessee is a relatively good football team without Derrick Henry. I wouldn't know if they would be the best team in the AFC, but the fact of the matter is that his impact was so great through the first half of the season that he was still like a top 3 top 4 running back in yards, in total yards, excuse me, basically until the end of the season, which really just goes to show just how amazing that his impact for Tennessee is, because he's such a huge force for that team that despite being out half of the season, they were able to carry the momentum from what he was able to establish the first half of the year, and not having him in the second half, they were still able to claim that number 1 spot in the AFC. So it really kind of goes to show just how effective Derrick's impact can be when he's just rolling on all cylinders. And I think in this matchup, I think that there's some holes in this Cincinnati defense that Derrick Henry can exploit, and I think he could exploit it in a significant way. I could potentially see him possibly getting 125, even 150 yards, as long as Tennessee doesn't have him on a pitch count. It's really indicative on just, is he fully 100% going into this game? I would like to assume that he is, but if he's not, I think it will definitely limit Tennessee's impact to a certain extent. But as far as the game is concerned, I am definitely favoring the Tennessee Titans in this one over the Cincinnati Bengals. When I look at the Bengals side of things, I think the Bengals, they had a very good game against the Raiders last week at home. Getting that 7-point win was huge for Joe Burrow and really these young guns on Cincinnati to bolster their confidence going into this matchup against Tennessee. But this is a different environment that they're going into. They're going on the road. They're going up against the best team in the AFC. And the best team in the AFC is getting Derrick Henry back. That's a tall task for a very young team, a very inexperienced team going on the road against a juggernaut like the Titans. So I think as far as my prediction goes, I do have Tennessee winning this one in a relatively close game. Like I said, I think Derrick Henry's impact is going to be significant. I could see him possibly getting like 125, 150 yards, like I said. And I think when it comes to Cincinnati, I think Joe Burrow is going to struggle in this game. I think Tennessee's defense is going to get him off of his mark, potentially force a turnover or two off of him. And I think what you saw against the Raiders last week in regards to Joe Burrow's performance, I think that was kind of a one-off. I just think that even though the Joe Burrow is a very good quarterback, as the young quarterback that he is, I think he does come back down to earth. I think this hot streak that Cincinnati's been on, I think it comes to an end. But I do give them credit for really the hot streak that they've been on, but I just think it comes to an end in this matchup against Tennessee. I've got Tennessee winning this one. I'm going to say 27-21. I think it's going to be a one-possession game when it's all said and done, but I just favor Tennessee a little bit more than I do Cincinnati, despite the fact that Cincinnati has been on a hot streak the last month or so. It's just that I think Derrick Henry is going to be huge for the Titans in this one, and I think he's really the X factor and the difference maker in this game that's going to take place this weekend.